Hello, everybody. This is Maria DeSimone, and guess what? You are watching the very first episode of the Insightful Astrology Video Podcast. Now, this may be the first and only episode. It kind of depends on my mood, but if you have followed my work, you know that I did have a podcast for several years, and a lot of you enjoyed that show and have been asking me for a long time to bring it into a video format. And because I am a technological dummy, it took me a while to get there. So thank you for your patience. And I am really excited about launching this today. I'm launching it at the beautiful new moon in Pisces. And very specifically, because I'm launching this video podcast at this beautiful new moon in Pisces, the subject of today's show is going to be astrological indicators of psychic and spiritual ability in a birth chart. So this is going to be a fun show, and guess who I have as my special first guest, and you might be my recurring co-host. I might force you to be my co-host, Joe, but Joe could. Okay, so guys, you have heard this man if you've listened to my podcast over the years several times. He was a repeat offender guest, very popular guest. His name is Joe Peretta. He is a psychic medium, and he is my stolen cousin. So let me explain about that. Joe, we've known each other for a long time, probably since
yeah, we have
5. I don't even know. But whatever. Basil and Mary got together when they were 5.
Right before I was born. So my whole life.
So my brother Basilio is married to Joe's first cousin Mary, and Italians. One thing that I will say that Italians tend to steal are family members. It's just what we do. So because Joe was kind of in the family and he was around me, I ended up stealing him, but not until he was an adult. And we became very close when Joe became an adult. We're a little bit apart in years. And once Joe came into the spiritual world, that is when he and I really forged an amazing bond and friendship and connection. And he is not only my cousin, but definitely part of my tribe. I mean, you are, Joe. I love you.
Yeah, same.
So welcome, Joe, to the show. Welcome now. I am going to very quickly show the world your website. This is Joe. You could go to joeperetta.com, and the spelling is right there. Definitely check out Joe's work. He is a very accomplished psychic medium. And today, what we're going to do is talk about the astrological indicators of psychic and spiritual ability in a birth chart. And we are going to use your chart. We are going to use my chart. And we are going to use the chart of 3 of my very good friends who are all well-known, documented psychic mediums. And I'm going to show you everybody's charts. I'm going to share my research findings from a lecture I did in 2007, believe it or not. But Joe, let's talk about you for a little bit. Tell us how you got into this whole world of becoming a psychic.
So some of it's your fault, I will admit, because I've always been interested in it. And I actually went to you for a reading, as you remember, back in 2012, maybe 2011, 2012. I think I was still in school actually when I went to you for a reading.
You were out of diapers.
What'd you say?
You were out of diapers by then.
Yeah, I was definitely out of diapers. Yeah. I was in college.
You were an adult.
I was an adult. I was in college, and I went to you for a reading, and I had this weird suspicion. This had to be 2011. I think it was like the summer of 2011, maybe. And I had this sneaking suspicion that I was a medium, but I wasn't really sure. I was like, I don't know. Everyone thinks that they're something and they're not, or I think I'm hearing voices and it's probably just like schizophrenia. I was like 23. That's when it, you know what I mean? It's like sets in your early 20s. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm cracking up. Who knows? And then I went to you for a reading, and I was in school for music. So I expected you to tell me like, you're going to be famous in a year and it's going to be amazing. And you started talking all about me talking to dead people and being psychic. And I was like, what the hell is she talking about? Like I knew I had the ability, but it's not that I didn't believe you. I was just like, could it possibly be? And then it kind of stuck with me. Like, when someone says something to you and it's just like, that it's right, even though you don't really know in the moment. Mm-hmm. It just like in my soul, I knew it. It was like this light went off and I was like, oh, maybe. And then it just kind of went from there. Like I graduated school with a degree in music. So I had no job, obviously. so I just started meditating, and all of a sudden everyone remembered that I had a deck of tarot cards, which I think was like a trick on the universe's part to like get me to, you know, do this again. And then it was you again who got me into it, because if you remember, during Hurricane Sandy, your house was pretty much destroyed. And
I was homeless.
yeah, you were homeless for a little while, and I gave you a reading at Mary's, at my cousin's at Mary's.
Yep.
And I just I remember doing the reading and saying stuff, and I was like, oh, I hope I'm right about this. Like, I don't know where this is coming from. And then like a week later, Mary called me and she was like, Maria's having a heart attack. Everything you said was right. She can't believe it. She said you're talented. And I was like, really? Like, is that true? And then it just kind of happened from there. It was like then I met Kim, whose chart we're gonna look at. And Kim was the first mediumship reading I did, and I had known who Kim was previously because my mom was like a big fan of her show, and then I started watching her show, and I was like, wow, if I read people ever, I want to do it like her. Like, she's so good at it. And then I met her at a dinner because of you again. And then so moral of the story, I owe most of it to you.
She forced you to read her too.
Yes, she did. She forced me to read her. And I was so nervous because I was like, she's like the best there ever was. Like, who the hell am I to read this woman? And everything I said apparently was accurate. And it was weird. It was just like, I did it that one day. And ever since then, I had never stopped reading people. I didn't need to learn. Like, it just kind of happened.
And you also, I introduced you to my friend Doreen,
yes,
who taught you tarot, but then really didn't, because you know, she just helped you develop.
Yeah, no, Doreen helped me a lot. She got me involved with Forever Family Foundation. I was doing this maybe like 6 months, and she was like, you really need to I almost said audition, take the test for Forever Family. And I did, and I passed, and I didn't realize that, like, I think only 10% of the people who take it like yearly ever pass or something. Like, it's a really hard test to pass.
Tell everybody what you're talking about. So the Forever Family Foundation is?
So they're a non-for-profit that they work with a bunch of scientists to and mediums, and the scientists on the science board are all researchers of consciousness, or your soul, or whatever you want to call it. They do a lot of afterlife science, so studies and things like that related to figuring out what the hell goes on after you die and how it works, and after death communication. And then the mediums, which I am one of them, they put us through a test before we're certified, where we have to read, I think I read 5 people. It was 4 over, back then it was Skype, not Zoom. Zoom didn't exist yet. Right. And 1 over the phone. And they basically grade you like in the moment. They're like, okay, like, this is right, this is wrong. And they have, they don't really share for confidentiality purposes, like their grading system or anything, but I know it's like based on statistics, and it's not just like, you know, anyone could do a reading. If I'm like, hey, Maria, you know, you have a mom and she loved you, obviously that's an accurate statement. You know what I mean? Like, but so does everyone. So they kind of grade it like how specific, like if I said your mother's name is so-and-so and she had this when she died, then it's, you know, scores higher, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what percentage you have to get right, but I know it's like above like 75% of the information has to be correct, and a certain amount of specific. And then after they statistically analyze the results in like all these different ways and stuff, and with each reading, then I believe if you're accurate enough, they let you work with them. So basically they host events where like they do grief retreats and stuff. So like in Connecticut, every summer I go with another 2 mediums, and we'll hold like small groups, and we'll do readings for everyone. And it really helps people a lot. But usually the people who get certified have been doing it for like 20 years, and you know, they have a lot of experience. I was like not even a year into it, and Doreen was like, you should take the test. And I was like, okay. And then after I passed, I found out that nobody passes it, basically. So I was like, thank God no one told me, because I would have freaked out.
And you know what? I'm glad that you said that, because for those of you watching this show, remember, the reason why I'm doing it is to show you the astrological indicators of psychic and spiritual ability in a birth chart. And the charts that I am sharing with you today, and the people who I am sharing with you today, Joe is clearly extraordinarily gifted as a psychic and as a medium. And he has many of the indicators that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what they are. I'm going to show you how you can find them in your own birth chart, or ask an astrologer to find them for you if you're not that versed in astrology just yet. Everybody who I'm talking about today, I will be showing their websites. I will be linking their websites in the description box below. And Joe, you are going to be the first chart that I show as I talk about the indicators of psychic and spiritual ability. But let's backtrack. What is psychic ability? Okay, I mean, where does this even, this come from? So Psychic ability is really just the phenomenon where someone is very sensitive to any force that's beyond the physical world, beyond the physical senses, the unseen, right? And there are very different types of psychic ability, okay? And they all are ruled by something in astrology, which is so cool. And I am going to share my screen right now, and I am going to show this to you. So this was notes from my lecture that I did back in July of 2007 for my Long Island National Council for Geocosmic Research chapter. And I was very honored to do this. This was in Bonnie's living room back in the day, Joe.
Oh, Bonnie.
I presented this. What I did was I spent almost a year, I think it was almost a year collecting the data of not just famous psychics and mediums and spiritual mystical leaders, but people who were flying under the radar, but I knew they had accurate abilities. And I got all their birth charts together, and I kept, and anytime I met a psychic, I said, will you share your birth data with me? I'm doing a research project. And I accumulated so much. People were very, very forthcoming and interested in this. And I developed a very clear system, which I will share with you. But let's get back to what is psychic ability. There are different types of psychic ability, which you are very well versed in. But what you may not know is astrologically what rules what. And so clairaudience is the psychic ability where you are hearing information from spirit, from your guides, whoever, any god, okay, anybody. And so Aquarius energy, Uranian energy is the ruler of clairaudience. Clairsentience is feeling, and just those intuitive hunches that you get, that you know something and you don't know why, just like you were talking about earlier. That is a Neptunian phenomenon, Neptune, Pisces energy. And we are really going to focus a lot on the Neptunian factor, because all of the charts that I'm showing you today are supercharged with Neptune, Pisces, 12th house energy in their particular psychic abilities, which I thought was interesting. So clairvoyance is seeing spirit, seeing energies. That is both Neptune, Pisces, and also Uranus. And clairvoyance are ruled by the moon and Pluto. This is, there's a book called the Rulership book by Rex Bills. So you can look at that book to see what rules what in astrology. He created this book. It's a great reference tool. Now, telepathy. Telepathy is ruled by Uranus and Neptune, but also the planet Mercury, because Mercury is communication. Empathy is a part of psychic ability because you have to be an empath in order to be psychic. You must be receptive to people's emotions. And empathy is ruled by Neptune and Pisces. Mediumship is spirit communication. And mediumship is, it is a Neptunian phenomenon. However, it is also ruled by Pluto, because Pluto connects to the occult and death and the underworld. And the moon is also a big factor in mediumship. And you're going to see, Joe, that your chart has this perfect trifecta, and every other medium also has that over and over again in their charts. So you can go on and just, see psychics and all psychic faculties, everything, psychometry, psychic influence. You're going to see the moon, Neptune, Pisces, 12th house, Uranus, Pluto, Scorpio, 8th and 9th houses emphasized in specific ways when you have this ability. Astral travel is something that I will also mention, and that is a 9th house Jupiter phenomenon. And finally, astrologers, people like me. Astrology is ruled by Uranus and Aquarius. And there's also a Neptune Pisces connection because there are many intuitive astrologers. And so the role of the water signs is key in psychic and spiritual ability. The water signs, planets, and houses are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Now, Cancer is the seat of your emotions. It is your instincts, your sensitivity, emotional awareness, and access to the past. And that's why the moon is often an indicator of psychic spiritual ability, because you have access to the past. So some placements in the 4th house, which connects to Cancer and the moon, that is often very prominent. The moon itself, always very prominent in the charts of psychic spiritual people. The sign Scorpio. Now this is healing. This is the healing part of what we do. It is the mystical power of transformation at work in ordinary reality. Scorpio energy is a very emotionally intense agent of transformation. And before I get to those checklists, I want to, for some reason, I did my pages wrong here. So of course I did, because I'm me. Where's the other page? Did I not? Oh, you know what? I might not have put it on here, and I might have to read it to you. Well, then, the 8th house is death and rebirth. Okay, Pluto is the radical transformation of consciousness and being. Pisces energy is the connection to the higher self, to God, to a higher conscious. Pisces, Neptunian 12th house energy is the very receptive psychic sponge of the zodiac. And Neptune is going to dissolve boundaries. Uranus gives flashes of insight. And I think what I'm going to do now is just go to the checklist of what I found was extremely prominent in people who were psychic. And there are different levels of being psychic. Okay, so you might be psychic, you might be watching this and have dreams that come true once in a while, or premonitions, or just that feeling. And then you might be next level psychic, like Joe, or Kim, or Doreen, or Jeffrey. You will have a checklist here, and you want to look at your chart and see, well, what fits in my chart? So here, you give yourself a point, basically, for everything that you may have in your chart. The water signs are going to be prominent for psychics. If you have 3 or more planets, or 2 planets plus the ascendant in a water sign, that is an indicator right then and there. If you're lacking in water, believe it or not, that's also an indicator.
That's a surprising one to me.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that is? If you're lacking in water, why do you think you could actually be psychic if you're lacking in water?
I literally have no idea. I really don't. I'm trying to figure it out.
Because there's an overcompensation in your psyche, and you're spiritually here to learn about that. You're very much here to learn about that water intuitive energy. So if you have planets in the water houses, 4th, 8th, 12th, you're going to get a point. If the natural rulers of the water signs and planets, the moon, Neptune, Pluto, are prominent and well aspected, this gives you more energy. Now, I'm showing you this checklist, but we're going to put it into practice. I know that this is not really comprehensible. This is all new information for a lot of you, but I will show it with charts. Angular or singleton outer planets or the moon is another huge indicator of psychic ability. And an outer planet would be Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. So if the rulers of the water houses in a person's chart are contained in a water house, this is a big indicator. Or if the water houses are ruled by natural rulers of water signs, this is another indicator. If Mercury is connected to an outer planet or angular, that can be an indicator. Pluto and Venus, the connection between Pluto and Venus is important because this gives healing ability as a psychic or a medium or a mystic. Intense healing ability, because Venus is your talents. And if Pluto is connected to Venus, there's an intensification of that healing talent that you're going to have in your chart. Something that's not on this list is the grand water trine. People who have planets in each of the water signs connected by trine, that is a huge indicator of psychic and spiritual ability. And the last one is psychic interception, which I'm not going to talk about because nobody has it in this study that we're talking about right now. And that's just the checklist there. So do you even understand any of that, or did that go over your head completely?
No, I got it. I was doing the checklist in my mind. I feel like I have most of those in my chart, actually.
You do. And this is why when you sat at my kitchen table, remember, you sat at my kitchen table in 2011. This was done in 2007, this particular lecture. And so it's like I see it and I'm like, boom, boom, boom.
Right.
And you're not the only person who I have predicted will become a psychic, because this is definitely something that I do regularly in my practice. If I see it, there are a lot of spiritual seekers, but not everybody is meant to do this work. So I am looking for this when I talk to people. Now, let's look at Joe's chart as our first example, because this is really cool to put this into practice. You are now looking at the birth chart of Joe Peretta. Very, very well established, documented psychic medium. And what I'm going to do now is show you some of the actual indicators of psychic ability in Joe's chart. We're going to start with the water houses. So Joe, you are a Gemini rising, right?
Correct.
And that makes the ruler of your chart Mercury. Here's Mercury in the 12th house in Taurus. Now Mercury rules telepathy, right? And Mercury in your chart is actually making a perfect trine. Don't make fun of me as I try to draw, but this is the fun of doing this on Zoom. A perfect trine to the planet Uranus, which is the higher octave of Mercury. And Uranus allows you to connect to vibrations that have nothing to do with the physical world. This is you hearing the vibrations mentally from spirit. Could be angels, could be aliens. It could be anything that is not of this world.
Right.
You can access that and communicate naturally. Mercury is also in your chart trine both Saturn and Neptune, which are in your 8th house, another water house. Okay. So here, Joe right away has multiple indicators, because you've got 3 planets in water houses. They are in aspect to each other. And you have the talking to dead people aspect of Mercury trine Uranus, plus the psychic communication aspect of Mercury trine Neptune, which is another talking to dead people aspect, or just a psychic aspect. This is an aspect of being a psychic. And your Mercury is trine Saturn. Why is the trine to Saturn important? Well, one of the indicators is looking at the rulers of your water houses. So look at this. You've got, these are the water houses in a chart, guys, the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th. So the ruler of your 8th house is in your 8th house, making a trine to another planet in a water house, your 12th house. Now this happens again with the moon in your 4th house. Remember I said the moon is a big indicator of psychic ability in a lot of people. Your moon is making a trine to Neptune and Saturn in your 8th house. So a planet in your 4th house is connecting to both planets in your 8th house. And a planet in your 4th house is also connected to that Mercury in your 12th house. Okay, you follow my sloppy drawing so far? Okay, so I don't know if you're adding up your points, because you're through the roof with your points. We're not even done yet.
Yeah.
You've got Moon trine Mercury, Mercury trine Neptune and Saturn, and Neptune, remember, rules the psychic spiritual realm to begin with. Mercury trine Uranus. Uranus can be considered in your 8th house, by the way, because it is so close. But technically there are 3 planets in your 8th house here. And that moon perfects the trine. Now, remember what I said, something that wasn't included on that checklist is a grand water trine as an indicator of psychic ability. So you actually have that, but it is not in the planets. It is in the houses.
Right.
You see that, right? You see you have this grand 4th house, trining planets in the 12th, trining planets in the 8th, and it's this endless loop. Now, Saturn and Uranus rule your midheaven, rule your career sector. And last but not least, the ruler of the 12th is Venus, and there's your Venus right there on the cusp of your 12th house. So you, my friend, have a gazillion indicators of psychic and spiritual ability in your birth chart. We didn't even talk about, the nodes of the moon. I also, by the way, Mercury is opposite Pluto, which is another indicator. So, I mean, I could go on, and I can be here all day with Joe's chart, literally. I know this looks like a 5-year-old's drawing. The last,
looks good. Looks good.
Your North Node. North Node symbolizes your life direction, where you're supposed to be growing in life. And you are very much destined to be the spiritual leader in your career path in this lifetime. Can you see that?
Yeah. It's good to know you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, your chart is dynamite. It is just incredible with the psychic indicators. Off the charts.
Not to cut you off, but I kind of have a theory too about mediumship. I have not researched it in the way that you did at all.
Give me your theory.
But a lot of good mediums that I know have either are Geminis or like Gemini Rising. And I think because Gemini is a sign of communication, even though I know it's like the lower, like Mercury is sort of not the lower vibration, but you know what I mean? Like it's the lower octave of the Aquarius.
Communication.
Right, exactly. I think a lot of really good mediums have like a heavy Gemini or some prominent Gemini in their chart, because I feel like it's the communication thing. Like I think it just helps us to be able to communicate with the physical world, having the Gemini and then having the other, you know what I'm saying?
It could certainly be a factor. As a matter of fact, 3 of the charts that we're going to look at have a heavy Gemini influence. See, so you may be onto something there that deserves more research if anybody's interested.
I think it's definitely a medium thing. I don't know if it's so much of a psychic thing, because I feel like a lot of the people who are just psychic that I know are more like a Cancer or a Scorpio. You know what I mean? Like I think it's more the water side of it, but definitely the Gemini for sure I think it helps.
Now, before we go to the next chart, tell us a little bit about how you manage being psychic. Are you
barely
just assaulted all day long?
No, you know what? I will say when I teach people, a lot of people ask like, should I buy like a tourmaline? Should I wear this? Should I, I mean, I do wear a lot of black, but it's just because I like it. It's not really a protective thing. But honestly, it's more about the boundaries you have as a person. Truly is really what that is. And I'm not, Maria, you know this about me, I'm not like a boundaryless person at all. Like I'm not a person who is afraid to say no, or like, no, I need to be alone at this moment in time. Like I'll see you in 3 months when I'm ready for you again. I'm comfortable saying I'm an Aries, Gemini Rising, like I'm Virgo Moon. Like if I need something, I'll tell you. So I really, I think that's just kind of built into who I am. Like my boundaries are pretty good. Except when it comes to when I care about someone. And I think that's because of my Virgo Moon, because we're so much like, you know how Virgos are. Like the second we deem you worthy of like our care and affection and love, it's like boundless and there's no boundary at all. So the only people who really like screw with me energetically, it's like my family, like you. like if you were upset and I was with you, I would never be able to not feel it. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't. But my clients, not so much.
I actually agree with you. Boundaries are huge. And if you're going to do this kind of work, you better be good at those boundaries. The only people that get to me are the ones that I have that emotional heart to deeply. And that's why I very often don't really like looking at the astrology of somebody that I'm close to, especially if I know they're going through a crisis, because I don't want to be sitting and telling them, yeah, this isn't over yet, or yeah, this is coming.
Right. You don't want to be in that position.
No,
I know what that's like.
But it is like you, I happen to be really good at not taking anything personal when I am communicating information to a client.
Right. Most of the time I don't.
Most of the time. Yeah.
Every now and again, I'll do a reading where if I feel like maybe I did something wrong, like, you know what I mean? Like if I feel like I wasn't up to snuff that day and then I feel like it didn't go as well, I'll not so much take it personally, but I'll be hard on myself. Again, it's that whole like Virgo Moon thing. Like I'll beat myself up over it. Yeah. But I don't think that's even an energy thing. I think that's just like life with a Virgo Moon. You know what I mean? Like the perfectionism.
But I think I want to answer this question too for other people out there, because what you're doing, and you're not maybe conscious that you're doing this, is you are accessing high vibration Neptunian energy or Plutonian energy or Uranian energy instead of the shadow or the low vibration. And it's essential, if you're going to do this kind of work, to be conscious of the higher vibration of these energies. So with Uranus, you really want to make sure that you're being true to your individual self, and going after that part of who you are, kind of not recklessly, but without apology. Okay, so you're going to be who you are without apology. Neptune, the high vibration of Neptune is that connection to a divine power, to something bigger than us, whether it is God, whether it is a higher consciousness, whatever you call it, there is that connection. And that's the highest vibration of Neptune, with unconditional, compassionate love. Falling into the lower vibration of Neptune energy gets us in trouble as psychics and spiritual beings. So you really must be aware of alcohol, drug abuse, mental illness, unhealthy escape patterns, whether it's gambling, porn, any kind of unhealthy addiction, overeating. This is negative shadow Neptunian energy. So if you are a psychic, if you have spiritual ability, if you're in the shadow of Neptune, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get in big trouble. So you really do want to be aware of that. Now, the high vibration of Pluto is true, intense healing and transformation, and using that Plutonian energy to not just regenerate yourself, but to heal others. So you are tapped into that when you're doing this kind of work. But if you are not, then you could be really self-destructive, and you can have some self-destructive tendencies and get really dark. And this is when I think people who do, let's say, black magic, or, all right, in Italian, the big thing is the malocchio. I get asked this, I feel like every other week, from somebody in my family. I have malocchio on me. I have the malocchio on me. I'm like, listen, it's not that I don't believe in it. I know all the dark energies are real, but it doesn't penetrate me. It never will. I refuse to allow that vibration into me. Just like for you, when you go into haunted houses, right? You're not going to take the spirit home with you, because you know how to protect yourself. This is the high vibration of Plutonian energy. People who are cursed, who say, oh my God, this person put a curse on me. You guys are probably in a shadow of Pluto energy that you got to get out of. So that's my advice astrologically. Does that make any sense to you, Joe?
You know, it does a lot. I think a lot of people who end up having issues like that usually in some way either allow it consciously or unconsciously, or have a person in their life that they trust and they shouldn't. And you know what I'm saying? Like it's usually let in some type of way. Or I find a lot, like, just to go back to the haunted house thing, like if people are living in a house that has something maybe negative there, whether it's an energy or an actual entity that's negative, the people who are affected the most are usually people who are like mentally ill, or who moved in there and already had addiction issues. Like that stuff usually doesn't cause that kind of thing. It usually like exacerbates the situation, and it's already something that's there most of the time. So I think you're right. If you just kind of like, not that you have to ignore that stuff, but it's just more like set the boundary. Like, listen, this is not, you're not even part of my life, not even part of my energy. Like, you got to go. It really doesn't,
Exactly.
9 times out of 10, you won't have any issues with it if you just kind of like let it.
It's very true. And this is also another reason why people who are psychic, spiritual mystics, you will notice that overall, we tend to keep our circles extra tight. And it's not because we're snobby bitches. It's because we are very energetically sensitive. And I have been told on multiple occasions, you know, certain points in my life where I get involved with a person, a friend, a lover, whatever, who I should not be with. I have been told, Maria, your vibration has gone down. Your energy has gone down. And it doesn't mean my energy of pep in my step. It is my spiritual energy. So we can't afford for that to happen. So if you have multiple indicators of psychic and spiritual ability, even if you're not a practicing psychic, be very aware of the company that you keep, because people are going to feed off of that spiritual energy that you have, and it can lower your vibration if someone is not vibrationally matched to you or above you in a way. Be careful. Have you noticed that darker people that come into your life really screw you up?
Oh yeah, I mean, they're people don't even have to have negative intentions to like lower my vibration or energy. Like there'll be people who I genuinely really like, and I'll have fun. I'm going to be 33 next month. Like I live in Manhattan, so I'm like out a lot. I have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
But there'll be people that I really like that, I'll just notice a pattern where after I see them, I'll have like a night out, or we'll go to dinner with certain, a group of people, and the same ones there every time. And I'm like, I really like them, but like I can't be around them for very long or at all, because it just like for days after, I'm like, I feel very like sluggish, or you just, it's hard to explain, but everyone listening to this probably has an interest in energy and knows a little bit about this. Sometimes it doesn't even affect your physical energy. It's like almost like a mental state or something, where you just like feel like spiritually, like in this other dimension of my existence, like something is off.
Yes.
And usually if you sit with it, the person who intentionally or unintentionally, or even not even knowing that they did it, you know what it reminds me of? Let me give a better example. When you get like a stomach virus or something,
Yeah.
and you're not too sure, or like food poisoning, and you're not too sure what you ate that made you sick, but if you sit there and think about everything that you ate, like if you ate 10 different things that day and you're like, oh my God,
You remember one thing and you're like,
one thing, you're like, that's it, that's the one. Like you just know which one got you sick.
Yes.
It's like that. Like if you're feeling like a little off, and you think about all the people you've been with like for the last 3 days, the second you think of the person that it's from, you will feel like, oh my God, I got to get away from them. And most honestly, sometimes like it happens to me with people who I love. It'll be with family members, and I'm like, they really brought me down, because their own energy is so either manic, or maybe they have mental illness, and listen, that's nothing against anybody, but sometimes it's hard to be around that when you're super sensitive. Like you really, it's a chore, honestly, to be this open and sensitive. I mean, it's like it's great, and I get to help people, but I can't live my life like everybody else. I try, but then I need like a month of recovery, because I'm like doing, I went on vacation twice, and I was with too many different people, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do anything for like the next 2 weeks, because I'm burnt out. And especially if you do work like we do, we can't afford to be burnt out. Like it's not like I can go to an office and sit in front of an Excel spreadsheet and work all day and be exhausted and bored and like hate my job, and I can still get my job done. If we're not in that headspace and in that mode, it just ain't gonna work. Like I cannot talk to your dead people if I don't want to that day, and like I can't get there emotionally and mentally. So you really have to be careful with yourself when you do this stuff.
And that is why it's critical to protect your energy with boundaries, with the company you keep. And not everybody understands that. Some people take it really personally in my life, unless they do this work. Right. Only people who do this work, and this is probably why the majority of my close friends are psychics and mediums, because we get each other in that way. And so this brings me to my next chart. So who am I going to talk about next? I think it's going to be Kim. So, oh no, it's going to be Doreen.
Oh, cool.
I love Doreen. So Doreen is like my BFF. So Doreen Malloy is a very, very well-known, well-established psychic medium. She has done tremendous work for the Forever Family Foundation. She's a published author. And Doreen and I met back in, I want to say 2007, 6 or 7. It was when I was actually doing the research for this lecture. Another friend introduced us. I asked her if I could use her birth chart in the study. She said yes. And Doreen and I became solid friends ever since. I mean, that woman, I have to say, she is one amazing psychic medium, but also a human being. Yeah. And so I could tell you, I can go on with all these people. I could tell you personal stories of things. You have to remember, I'm using these charts, not just because they're my friends. I have worked with all of these people. We have all done events together at one time, each one of these people's charts that you're going to see. And they all have done readings for me at different points in life, or just, called me up one day and said, Maria, blah, 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 like with you. Doreen has done that multiple times. And let me tell you, she freaked my freak on more than one occasion and has been extremely helpful in my life. So let me show you Doreen's website now. We're gonna go to Doreen Malloy's website. You could go to doreenmalloy.com to learn more about Doreen, and her book is Proof Positive, Metaphysical Wisdom. You can get it on her website or on Amazon, wherever books are sold. And so now what I'm going to do is show you Doreen Malloy's birth chart and her psychic indicators. And it's a very different chart. All of your charts are going to be different, guys. But remember, the indicators, the guidelines, the checklist, it's going to show up. It just is if you're doing this kind of work. Now, Doreen happens to be a Neptunian Jupiterian psychic medium. Okay. Now, Jupiter is a big energy for a lot of psychics who focus on teaching, who focus on spreading their wisdom. And Doreen is very much a teacher. She is also a grief counselor. She did the radio show before you took it over at Forever Family for many years, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to start with Doreen's ascendant, just like we did with you. Doreen's Cancer rising. Cancer is ruled by the moon. So your chart ruler becomes interesting and important in the charts of psychics and mediums. And well, anybody really. It talks about your soul's most immediate purpose. Now look at her moon in Pisces, next to the sun in Pisces. They're in the 9th house. Bam. Okay. This is Trine, the ascendant. Huge, huge psychic spiritual indicators right then and there. But of course, there's more. So we have the planet, her 8th house. Now she's a medium. She talks to the dead. Okay. The 8th house cusp is here at 14 degrees. Her north node is here at 10. I have always suspected that her birth time may be like a minute or two where that north node is really in the 8th house. I do believe it is in the 8th house, but even it doesn't matter because we can still read it for the 8th house. So her north node of destiny is in Aquarius. I'm going to say in the 8th house. And that talks about this destiny for mediumship, for healing others from their trauma and intense experiences. And Doreen happens to really specialize in helping people get through their deep, deep grief. She's very gifted at that. The ruler of Aquarius is Uranus. And here is her Uranus placement in a water sign and in a water house. So we've got the ruler of the 8th in the 12th, and that also is the ruler of her north node. And Doreen has Mercury. So now Mercury rules her 12th house, another spiritual house. She has Mercury at a critical degree of fame called the Aries point. So any planets that you have between 0 and 2 degrees of a cardinal sign, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, it will thrust you into prominence for what that planet represents. And Doreen's Mercury is in Aries, an innovative, brave, courageous communicator in the 9th house who is going to spread her wisdom out to others. And certainly she has done that about spiritual matters, very much so. So that for her actually becomes a psychic spiritual indicator. Now, she's got in the water houses here, down here, the 4th house, Neptune conjunct Saturn. So Neptune is in a water house, okay? And it is exactly opposite Mars. She has a Mars-Neptune opposition. Mars is the ruler of her midheaven, her career sector, okay? So Neptune in aspect to the personal planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, are usually the biggest psychic indicators, but Venus and Mars can become important if it ties in with the rulership. So you have to take every chart individually. In her chart, most certainly, this Mars-Neptune opposition has played out in her career as a psychic medium. And the last thing that I'll mention, well, there's actually more. Pluto is in the second house of talents and abilities and makes a perfect trine to that Mars, to the ruler of her midheaven, her career sector. And Saturn is the traditional ruler of the eighth house. So again, both the modern and traditional ruler of Doreen's eighth house of mediumship are located in water houses. Saturn is in the fourth, Uranus is in the 12th. I could also go on and on with Doreen's chart. She has more indicators. I just want to get to everybody's chart. But I think you're starting to pick up, the Pisces energy, the Neptune theme. Can you see similarities maybe, and then also differences, Joe, in Doreen's chart versus yours?
Well, definitely in the chart, you see the difference, but I wish that everyone that's going to watch this knew me and Doreen a little bit better, because you really, if you know us, it makes so much sense. Like if you look at her chart or my chart, because I think Doreen is such a good medium, such a good psychic, but we do read a little bit differently. You can tell the difference in the way we read for sure. Mm-hmm. And Doreen is so much more like tender and sweet and like nice. And like, I can't explain it without like insulting myself, but I feel like a reading with Doreen is so like a nice warm hug from the other side. You know what I mean? Like she's just like so like warm and healing, and I don't think I am. Like I don't feel like I'm not like that. Like
you're more Aries and abrasive. I mean,
but I'm not mean during a reading or anything. I'm not mean, you guys.
No, he's not mean. You're more you're very matter of fact. You'll be like, right. And I've seen you actually. You did a group thing at my sister's house one day. Mm-hmm. So I saw you do the group thing there. And I remember you like, you're just whipping out names, and then you're like, oh wow. And then once the emotional impact of what you're saying registers in your brain, that's when you take a step back. But for you, you're able to just communicate it first. Right. And then you're like, oh wow, that's really deep shit. And, oh my God, that's horrible. But you say it first and then it registers.
Right. You know what I think it is? I think Doreen is more emotionally attached to the messages, maybe, if I could say it that way.
Because she's a double Pisces.
Right, she's so
feels
Cancer,
her
Cancer Rising.
Cancer Rising rules her chart.
Right.
She's very empathic. She has high empathy. Right. And she feels her client's pain, and she is very sensitive to her delivery of information because
right.
So I think that's a strength that she has.
I think I'm more diplomatic, but I wouldn't say I'm the most
cerebral. You're more cerebral.
Very cerebral when I do it, yeah. But not cold. I wouldn't say I'm cold or anything like that.
I wouldn't say that either.
But you could, if you see both of us read, if you knew both of us, you would, it's scary, the astrology, really, if you knew both of us the way that we are.
My favorite thing to do with Doreen, and we're actually going to do it this weekend. I get to see her. I'm going to see her Saturday. I wish you could come at dinner with us. Gosh, that'd be so cool if you could meet us. So I'm going to Jersey, and I'm sleeping over her house the weekend.
Oh, maybe
for her birthday, because on the 15th I'm actually going to Florida. That's her real birthday.
Oh, right, right.
So what I love doing with my friend Doreen is when we get together, which is not too often, a few times a year. Lives are busy. We go to her house. Go out to dinner. We got the Taurus Cancer connection. We got to eat some good food. And then we come back to her house. We crack open the wine, and we, sometimes chocolate or leftover food or whatever. And then she whips out her tarot cards. I whip out my astrology charts, and we go to town. We have so much fun. And a tarot reading from Doreen is like a box of chocolate to me. It is. I look forward to it like I would savor it like a box of chocolate, because I know that I am getting something very special from Spirit when Doreen gives me a tarot reading to help me with my life and guidance over the next several months. And I treasure it. I just treasure it. And so, that's the fun part of having psychic friends, having your own psychic friends network, is that this is just normal life for us. And we do this for each other all the time. So right. Should try to come and have dinner with us.
Yeah, maybe I will. Let me see. Let me see what I got going on Saturday.
So anyway, now let's go to my next chart, who is another very good friend who you are very close with because you do the same work and you've done a lot of events together. And she and I got connected. Actually, I feel like it was more 2008 or 9. This was after my study. Now, interestingly enough, Kim Russo grew up around the block from me in Ozone Park. So we grew up not only in the same neighborhood, but essentially around the block from each other, on the same block. And our families were very intertwined all of our lives. Her cousin is best friends with my Aunt Anna Marie, who does my hair, who's actually my cousin, but because she's older, in Italian world, you got to say aunt. Her other cousin was the contractor for my house. I could go on and on. There's a lot of family connections between my father, her family. It's hysterical, but we didn't know this until years later when we connected as spiritual friends. And so she had reached out to me by email, and I cannot remember if it was she was following my work, she liked my work, and she was getting a vibe. So she reached out to me, and then she and I connected and became friends. And then she invited me to be a part of a sizzle reel for a TV show that she was pitching at the time. And we did the sizzle reel together, and that's how I met Ruru, the other Maria. That's how I met Ginger. Okay, so Ginger and also, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name right now, Laura. That's how I met Laura, because Laura was also being interviewed for that. So we did the sizzle reel, and then we ended up becoming much closer friends. And it was really interesting because we found out by accident in conversations that we literally grew up on the same block, had the same, our families all knew each other. And it's just one of those things that I think is hysterical, because it is true that in life, your soul tribe, it's 6 degrees of separation. And when you are meant to connect to people, you will. And Kim, her chart is extraordinarily psychic, and you probably know her. She is a world famous psychic medium. She has multiple published books. She has done multiple television shows. And I'm going to show you her website now so that you can find out more about Kim and Kim's work. So this is Kim's website, Kim the Happy Medium. And so kimthehappymedium.com. This is a picture of Kim Russo. She's, like I said, multiple books, multiple television shows. Just look at her books real quick. Your Soul Purpose and The Happy Medium, Life Lessons from the Other Side. I was actually really honored. In her book, Your Soul Purpose, the chapter she did on astrology, she consulted with me and another astrologer friend of mine, and she acknowledged me in the book, which was so nice. So she really talks a lot about, she's not just a psychic medium. Kim is a spiritual leader. So I would define Kim as a mystic.
Yeah.
Like I would define Doreen. These two ladies, to me, they are not just psychics. They are not just mediums. They are mystics. So Kim's chart, which you're going to see, she's also part of the Forever Family Foundation, like you and Doreen, right? Many years. So again, these are well documented. It's not just about being famous. These mediums know their craft and are very well documented. So that's Kim's website. Now let's look at Kim's birth chart. Let's have fun digging into her psychic indicators. And I don't even know, this is cool for you, Joe, because you know all these people. And now for the charts. Now, here's what's interesting to me. Doreen and Kim have the exact same degree of their Cancer rising ascendant. Oh. That is very interesting to me, because what it does for both of these psychic mediums is it makes the moon their chart ruler. Now, remember, the moon is a critical energy in the psychic spiritual world. So she's got Cancer rising. The ruler of her chart is going to be the moon. Well, we have another moon in Pisces, just like Doreen. Moon in Pisces rules Kim's chart next to Saturn, the planet of karma, but also authority and mastery, also in Pisces, in her 8th house of mediumship. So this woman is what I would call a structured psychic. Now, you will see this about Kim.
100%.
Now, Pisces energy, Cancer rising, she's not cold. She's not cold at all. But very much like you, she can create a strong boundary when she is delivering information so that she doesn't melt into a bubble of tears. And I think that is because of her Saturn being next to the moon. That gives her that strength. Now, let's go on with other indicators. 12th house, Neptunian house, has Venus in it. Venus is trine. Perfect, easy aspect. to the moon, and Saturn. North node of destiny is in Cancer in the 12th house. She's supposed to be a nurturing, psychic, mystic leader and share her gifts. That's another indicator right there. The ruler of Kim's 12th house is Mercury, and the ruler of her 4th house would be Venus, and the ruler of her 8th house is going to be Saturn and Uranus. So we have the traditional ruler of the 8th in the 8th, Saturn. We have the ruler of the 4th in another water house in the 12th. And we have the ruler of the 12th, Mercury, planet of communication and telepathy, making an opposition to the planet Neptune, psychic spiritual ability, and Mars also opposes Neptune, just like in Doreen's chart. Mars, like with Doreen's chart, Mars is the ruler of the midheaven. So the ruler of the midheaven in both of these ladies' charts is making contact with Neptune, the planet of the psychic spiritual realm, and Mercury in Kim's chart is also connected to Neptune. So you can see that her psychic indicators. Oh, she also has Venus is sextile Pluto. So remember I said Venus-Pluto links are very much found in the charts of intense healers. She's got that sextile, and she does have the outer planets, both Uranus and Pluto, opposite her moon Saturn conjunction there in the 8th house. She also, in this case, the sun is square. There's like a gazillion in Doreen's chart, I mean in Kim's chart as well. Sun is square both Uranus and Neptune. So remember, one of the indicators is the outer planets making a contact to the sun or to the moon. She's got that everywhere in her chart. So her chart is like a hot mess with all these indicators, but you can see this is an intensely psychic, spiritual woman. And I think it's just amazing how everybody's chart shows it in a different way, but they all follow the same formula. They all follow the same really interesting formula. And so the next person that I'm going to show, I don't think you know. Do you know Jeffrey Wands?
No, I know of him, but we've never met, actually.
So Jeffrey, was one of the psychics that I met back in the day. I actually went to a book signing of his. I believe it was in 2006. Might have been earlier. I could be wrong. And it was at this book signing. Another friend that I had introduced me to Jeffrey, went to the book signing, and I was like, hey, can I have your birth data? I'm doing this study.
Totally normal question.
You know, I got Tom Holland's birth data like that. I'll ask, what are they going to do? Worst thing you can do is say, no, you're a crazy lady. Get lost. So he was very gracious and he was interested. He gave it to me. And Jeffrey proceeded to tell me that I was going to be a very well-known astrologer. This was back in 2005 or 6 when I just got certified as an astrologer. And I was not even doing it professionally. This was a hobby for me back then. I was still married back then. So he was one of the first, but now, and Kim, by the way, said the same thing, and so did Doreen, but different times. But Jeffrey was probably the first person who said that to me from years ago. And Jeffrey and I don't sit around and have wine with him like I do with Kim or Doreen or you and, or that kind of thing. But we are very connected in the sense that he will always extend himself to me and give me opportunities. And I have done his radio show for several years now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a recurring guest on his very popular radio show. He is an extremely widely published author. He has done multiple television shows. And I'm going to show you Jeffrey Wands' website now so that you guys can find out more about him. I'm showing you the websites because all of these psychics and mediums do readings. And you can go to their website and schedule readings with them. So this is jeffreywands.com. Jeffrey Wands has done a gazillion books, okay, on death and grieving, dream interpretation. I believe it was this book, Another Door Opens. That's when we met. I went to the book signing of this book, I think. And he also wrote a book on developing your psychic ability. So great resources here for those of you who are interested. And it's so funny because when you meet Jeffrey, if you ever meet him, you could see he looks like he's mean, right? He looks like he's cold. I make fun of him with this because he has Capricorn rising, which you're going to see in a minute. So initially you're like, wait, he doesn't smile. He's not smiling. Does he hate me? You will notice this about some people who have Capricorn rising, and I know a couple of Capricorn rising, but then he's the biggest teddy bear and he is so lovable. He's a Taurus. Once you get to know people. So Jeffrey has extraordinary psychic ability, extraordinary. And I have, like I said, I've worked with him multiple times over the years on his radio show, and I'm sitting next to him and he's giving readings and giving me chills with the things that he comes out with people. It gives me chills over and over again. So he is just amazing. So now with Jeffrey's chart, let's look at his psychic abilities. I don't even know what time it is. So I don't even know how long this show has gotten, Joe, but as long as you're okay, I'm okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Now, Capricorn rising with Saturn on the ascendant. Okay. So this is, don't be fooled now. He's actually the biggest teddy bear in the world. Why? Let's go to his sun in the 4th house, water house, angular, making an exact opposition to Neptune on the midheaven. If that's not the chart of somebody who is a psychic, I don't know what is. Okay. That right there by itself. Now, by the way, Gemini Moon, you said something about the Gemini in psychics, right? So he's got a Gemini Moon. So I was laughing when you said you think there's like a Gemini connection there for a lot of psychics.
And you know what's funny, actually? I believe Kim's sun is like 11 or 12 degrees Gemini, right?
It is.
My ascendant is like 14 Gemini and his moon is 15. I wonder if there's something in that like mid Gemini, early mid degree.
I don't know. My South Node's in Gemini. You get to my chart. I also have a Gemini thing, but I don't talk to dead people. I just talk to planets.
That's true. But...
So now the psychic indicators, like you, Jeffrey has that grand water trine, but not in water planets, in earth planets, but in the water houses. And he brings all of the psychic phenomena down into reality. So the sun is trine Jupiter in the 12th house in Capricorn, which is trine Pluto in the 8th house, which is trine the sun. So he's got sun Pluto, psychic indicator. Pluto in the 8th house, which is really strong. Once again, North Node in the 8th house. So we have seen North Node in the 8th house multiple times for psychics and mediums, 12th house, or yours was in the 10th house, but it was in Pisces. It was in a 12th sign. So Jupiter is the ruler of his 12th. So remember, one of the indicators, when the ruler of a water house is in a water house, this is in the water house, it rules. Boom. So that's Jupiter. Ruler of his sun, ruler of the 8th house is the sun. Again, that happens for Jeffrey. Ruler of a water house is in a water house twice for him. And then, his Pluto, it's just his chart knocks me out. The angularity of the sun Neptune is just phenomenal. But his sun is more involved in his psychic ability than his moon, because his sun is making the trine to both Pluto and to Neptune. And Pluto, what I want to say about Pluto is that Pluto is the ruler of his midheaven, Scorpio midheaven there. And so this is Jeffrey's psychic indicators in a nutshell. Hugely psychic. I mean, beyond, if you ever listen to this man. And he's been on the Maury Povich show a lot. I love him. He's adorable. So I know this, I don't even know how long the show has been. I'm so sorry. I think we're over an hour, but yeah. I do want to show you my chart to end really quick so that you know that you don't have to be a working psychic to be a psychic. I'm an astrologer. But the psychic stuff comes out. And I was talking to Kim on the phone yesterday, and I was like, I really think I'm becoming more psychic. Really, 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 I think I am in my old age. and I have to embrace it because things that I'm starting to hear in my head, I told her something and she was like, you just gave me chills. I'll tell you about it later. But anyway, so I have been a reluctant psychic for most of my life because the reason why I did the study that I did back in 2007 is because I have had a couple of people in my family who struggled with mental illness who were also psychic and mediums. And that made me want to find out astrologically what's the differences between someone who's a psychic or someone who's just batshit crazy. Turns out there's no difference at all.
I was going to say, my experience is no difference at all.
And astrologically, that is actually proven because the indicators for mental illness are the same as psychic ability, but it goes back to what we said earlier, using the shadow, being in the shadow of that Neptune vibration versus the higher vibration of Neptunian energy, and really, really consciously directing it there. So I was the reluctant psychic for a long time because I didn't want to go crazy. I thought I would lose my mind. And I found astrology and I said, wow, I love this because it's physical. I could prove it. It's in the planets, it's math. I'm like, yeah, this is why I'm saying this. This is why I'm saying it. So my love really is astrology, but I think I'm an astrological medium. I really do think I talk to the planets. They talk to me. I
agree.
Thank you.
No, you know why I agree with you? I'm going to tell you why I agree with you, because you, like anyone who follows you obviously knows that one aspect could mean like 100 different things, but you will somehow say like 3 of the possibilities that it could be, and like 2 of them are exactly what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like you'll try to give the theme, and then I feel like you'll give like, just for as an example, blah 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 will happen, and then that happens, and I'm like, but she says she's not psychic. Like I don't like, are we hearing her? Is she kidding? You do it all the time. You do it all the time.
I know. I embrace it now. I'm 47 years old. My name is Maria DeSimone. I am a psychic.
It's about time.
Okay. Well, and an astrological medium. I just invented the term on this show.
I like it.
I like it too. Oh my God. And it shows in my chart, which we're going to look at now. Actually, no. Well, before I showed you my chart, I keep forgetting that this is my YouTube channel, but I don't think I have ever on my YouTube channel shown people my website or reminded you that I have a website, because you know me on YouTube. But this is my website, guys. If you want to go and check it out, InsightfulAstrology.com. That's where I book my consultations. You could take classes with me. You can become a coaching client. All sorts of juicy stuff there. And now I will show you my chart and show you my indicators of psychic and spiritual ability. So let's start with that rising sign again. Let me get my annotation. It's amazing how the ruler of the chart for almost everybody has been such a critical component. I have Aries rising. Ruler would be Mars. Mars is in Cancer, but it is leaning into the 4th house. It's angular. I have an angular Mars. So this becomes the open door here. My Mars in Cancer. But let's go right away to my 8th house. You can see that I have a Moon Neptune conjunction in the 8th house in the sign Sagittarius. That is a very psychic, extremely psychic indicator. And North Node in the 8th house, again, like in several other charts. I have 2 planets in the 12th house, Jupiter in Pisces, which is my guardian angel placement, and Venus in Aries. Now, the rulerships. This rulership thing, it's over and over again. The traditional ruler of Pisces is Jupiter. The modern ruler of Pisces is Neptune. Both of them are in a water house. Furthermore, they are in something called mutual reception, meaning Jupiter in Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Neptune is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So what that does is it ties Jupiter and Neptune together in a strengthened way. And you could basically take Jupiter, pick it up, and you can put it in my 8th house. And I have an honorary Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in my 8th house. You can also take Neptune, pick it up, put it in my 12th house, and I have an honorary Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in my 12th house. So that is another thing to look for, these little nuggets of mutual reception. So Mars is the traditional ruler of my 8th house. It is there hovering basically on my 4th house cusp. The moon rules 4th house. Moon is there in another water house. And I have the tightest aspect of my chart is the Venus-Pluto opposition. Again, this healing energy of Venus and Pluto. And my astrological mediumship aspect, I don't often talk about the in conjunct aspect, but it is a 150-degree aspect. The in conjunct is an uncomfortable aspect. And I do have Uranus angular in my chart. I am an astrologer. And I do have Mercury in conjunct Uranus. So that would be the talking to dead people aspect, but for me, it is talking to planets. That's me in a nutshell. I am also a bit psychic. So there you have it. I know this was a very long video podcast. I hope you guys learned something from it. I hope you found it relevant. I hope now you have some tools to look and find the astrological indicators in your chart of psychic and spiritual ability. And Joe, do you have any parting words of wisdom?
No, I think we covered everything astrologically. But I will say, if you are struggling, this will help a lot of people who are struggling with anxiety and things like that, and depression, because I feel, like you said, there's really not much of a difference. It's really just more the higher octave or the lower octave of these energies. But I find, not with everyone, but with a lot of people who are psychic or medium or have mediumistic tendencies and are not paying attention to it or don't really know what it is, it usually expresses itself in the lower octave. So you will have a lot of anxiety and depression, and usually anxiety is really what it comes out as. And you won't know why, and you'll just kind of be like, why the hell am I the only person around me who has this? I don't get it. And the second you start like meditating and paying attention to your psychic ability, you'll notice the shift, and the anxiety will give way into your psychic ability. So it's not a bad thing to look at in your chart if you're struggling with things like that, because it is the higher octave of those energies. So it's good to work with. Just saying.
That was a brilliant point, and I am so happy that you mentioned that. That's a beautiful way to close out, because it can be really helpful. It can be very validating and comforting and beautiful. Well, you're so wise. I love you. So me and Joe and his mom, we're all getting our dual citizenship right now in Italy to become Italian citizens. And I'm gonna crash at their place in Rome, because they're getting a place, and so
the witches are moving to Rome.
The witches are moving to Rome. Well, part-time. And
part-time for now.
For now. Well, we'll see what happens. But anyway, thank you all for watching the video podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments, share, like, subscribe, all that jazz. And I will probably do another show eventually.